Hello and welcome to Disclosure Network New York, a members Zoom meeting for Wednesday. That's March 24th, 2021. I'm Nick Curto, co-founder and director of Disclosure Network New York. DNNY is a grassroots organization now celebrating our 20th year of providing 2 meetings a month throughout the year, and we are based in Manhattan. We focus on cutting-edge UFO, ET issues, paranormal phenomenon, as well as many important and related subjects from a wide variety of areas and sources as we go deep into these exciting and sometimes misunderstood subjects that the mainstream press will not talk about or very seldom, if ever, disclose. Our members do intensive investigative research into these various cutting-edge topics and share that information with the group at our meetings and with our internet followers on YouTube. We now are currently doing only Zoom meetings twice a month until COVID-19 is gone. Can't wait for that. And the venue will be hopefully reopened. We do it in the West Village of New York City. Our Zoom meetings for members only are held on the first and third Wednesdays nights from 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And each month throughout 2021, we will be doing this. If you'd like the details to become a DNNY member and to join us, please email me. I'm going to give you my email address, which is nicknyny1, and that's numeral 1, at gmail.com. I'm going to repeat that one more time for you. That's nicknyny1, the numeral 1, at gmail.com. Our motto right from day one is, quote, connecting the dots to seek truth, unquote. We have available to our DNNY members worldwide the DNNY News Blast email service. That's focusing on the important cutting-edge topics of special interest to all of our members. You can also visit our website. I'm going to give you that, which is dnny.info. Again, dnny.info. By becoming a member, you'll be connected with all the other members, and you'll be receiving our meeting announcement details, cutting-edge news, as well as special invitations through events throughout the year. Okay, with that said, our featured guest speaker for DNNY Zoom meeting tonight is my new good friend and colleague, Adrienne Thoben. Adrienne, very good to see you. Hi.
Hi, thanks.
Thanks for being our featured guest speaker. Now, this is part 2, as you know, and because of that, I just want to say to the listeners who will be listening to this or viewing it, that the DNNY has a website on the YouTube. They can go and see this or the first part 2 of your talk by going to Disclosure Network New York Town Meetings. Disclosure Network New York Town Meetings. They're all listed there, and it's really quite a gold mine of amazing topics and people doing talks. So with that, I'm just going to give a very brief introduction about you, just to give a little bit of that. So you're here to share your close encounters from the first kind to the fourth kind, from the paranormal to the peculiar. It is not one story, but a composite of unique individual experiences that start in the early 60s and continue on to this very day. Early on, this left you with no explanations whatsoever and in silent confusion. As a mature adult, you began searching for answers, and little by little, you started finding similar stories and experiences and people willing to share their experiences with you through books, interviews, and even in person. Their testimonials helped you greatly, and That is why you are here today, to contribute and share in some way, in the hopes of making a difference by letting others know they are not alone. And I absolutely salute you for that. That's a wonderful thing to have as a goal. And we really, your goal to us, and welcome, very good to have you here.
Thanks. It's great to be back.
And we are looking forward very much to this. See, where did we leave off time last time?
Well, what I wanted to do was a recap of a few things that I did talk about in part one. And because there may be people listening who didn't hear part one, or somebody tuning in who's new, I did write out a few little details before I get to what's new with each category, just so they get a touch of a background. And I'll start with my childhood. I mentioned in part one when I was about 4, after seeing two beings who claimed to be my parents. But before the onset of my ear implant activation, I was in a lower side of my yard in Bethany, Connecticut. And about 75 feet away was the road. It was to my left. And this 4-door sedan drove up. And there was 3, possibly 4 men in the car. And it was a real steep incline. So they pulled up and they stopped. And one guy rolled down the window. So they were all dressed the same. They all had these fedora hats and in a dark jacket. It could have been a dark brown. And the guy turned his head to his right to look at me, and they all turned their head at the same time. It's very weird. And he said he wanted me to come over to the car. He goes, "Come closer to the car." And I said, "No." And he said, "Why not?" And I shouted back, "Because my dad told me never to talk to strangers." So they all chuckled in unison in a very contrived way. It was weird. They all went, "Ha, ha, ha, ha."
Wow.
It was strange. And so I ran to my father, and they just drove away. But it was very weird. It wasn't normal behavior. It wasn't a normal laugh. And they all did everything at the same time, and they were all dressed alike.
Well,
So
I'm glad you thought to just get out of here real fast. I'm very happy you did that.
my dad taught me good. He was a policeman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So would that be some sort of Men in Black? So this had to have been 1960, 63, maybe
Okay.
64, which I thought it was just bizarre.
Indeed.
Um, Next, I wanted to bring up, in part one, someone had brought up problems when you have missing embryos. It can cause a lot of distress to some female parts. People get cysts and things that cause a lot of pain. And I did have one. What I wanted to mention, I forgot during that question and answer. I had bought my second crystal I ever bought was called Apophyllite. It's a little teeny pyramid shaped crystal. It'll just slightly overlap a postage stamp. And I says, "Well, why not? Let's give it a try." Now, this is in the 1990s, and I didn't even have a computer. I knew nothing yet. I was just getting into crystals. And I put it over my area that was very painful. And I prayed for healing. And I never had another problem. For years,
Hmm.
I had problems, like 3 or 4 years. So bad I couldn't move. And then all of a sudden it worked. Now I had lent
Wow.
that crystal since it healed me. One of my friends had cancer, a woman named Susan, and I gave it to her to use. And when I went to retrieve it, when she said she was finished with it, it was all shattered, which can happen with negative energies in a crystal. They can just shatter.
I never knew that. That's really interesting. Never knew
Yeah.
that.
Yep. And apparently it didn't work because she did pass away.
Sorry.
So, yeah. Um, Now, this, we did talk about the cyborg being. Um, that's where I previously told you of an experience where I felt like I may have been off planet, and I was in a small room with a young lady and her little brother. And out the window, the dirt was very red, and it was a bleak landscape. That's what made me think I was on Mars. And our attempting to escape the room prompted a lightning fast visit from a cyborg being that when I opened the door to exit, it shot me in the right temple with something invisible from, it looked like a ray gun. I don't know. And I instantly knew I was going down as the sensation melded into my head. But I never got to tell you what happened upon regaining consciousness. So I was back on my couch. But what happened then in months to follow was weird. So when I came to, first thing I did was look for my dog. And she was in the same spot where I had left her because I thought they better not have hurt my dog. That's how real this was. And she hadn't moved, so she was okay. But what was really odd is I was covered with a very large thermal stretchy blanket from neck to toe because it was winter time. And this was off my feet. It was off my body and even off my feet. Now, in order to do that, normally I would have to kick and push it off, or I would have to actually sit up and pull it off me. To find it completely off me is not, I don't know how that would happen. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately was emotional. I couldn't stop crying. And I don't know why. I've been through a lot, never cried. Okay. So these tears came, and for all I've been through, nothing has really affected me like this before. So when I was at a monthly UFO meeting in a Connecticut group, they meet, I spoke to this one man, and this was 2 months later. So eventually it was waning away. I could talk about it without breaking down, but my eyes filled up with water. I told him what happened, and he could see me getting emotional. And he goes, "Why are you getting emotional?" And I said, I don't know what happened. And he says, "We should probably just be in hysterics." And I says, "Well, no, I've been through a lot." I said, "This is just kind of." Then he said, "Have you ever heard of my lab?" I said, "No, I didn't really know what my lab was." And I did look it up on the computer. It's not a very good thing. Not sure, you know. And then this other woman, Denise Stoner, she took an interest in it. She has a lot of talents. She's very multi-talented in psychology, hypnotherapy, and ufology, to name a few. So she said cyborg encounters are relatively new and pretty rare right now, but there are others who have encountered them and been shot in the temple. I'm hearing a little bit of static. Is anybody else?
No, I am. Jim, are you okay?
Maybe
Everybody
it's
else
me.
all right?
All right,
I
it just
do.
stopped. It just
Yeah, I
stopped.
do hear a little static. It might actually be coming from Adrienne.
Yeah. I just stopped it now.
Yeah, I can. It sounds better.
Okay.
It is better, Adrienne. It is better.
I just moved the wire.
Well, whatever works.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, so hopefully I'll get some more information on that cyborg being.
What an experience, though. My goodness, that's a lot of challenge right there.
Yeah, the fact that it made me cry and I didn't know why repeatedly for several months, it was hard to talk about, but no answer.
You wonder if somehow you blocked or you were made to block what really happened. So you couldn't put your finger on it, but you still had emotional trauma from that you couldn't deny. Something perhaps.
There must have been trauma, because she said there was one thing that I had said that led her to believe that. And I described the tears in the why I was crying. It wasn't grieving. It wasn't physical pain. It wasn't loneliness or other reasons you cry. I said it felt like betrayal. These were tears of betrayal. And she goes, So
Wow.
that really, yeah, that's the way it made me feel, like somebody really hurt my feelings. Yeah.
Boy, if you ever have any follow-up to that, please keep us informed.
I will. That's not her forte. So she is hopefully going to relay somebody to me who might want to gather more information on it. And it's pretty much the first time I ever really want to be investigated or even hypnotized to get more info.
Hmm.
See what happens.
I tried that about a year ago. A hypnotherapist did put me under, and I was trying to explore many years ago when I was with my family, and I believe we were abducted for a period of an afternoon and early evening. I wanted to get a little more information, and it did work. I did get a little more clarity. So if you get the right hypnotherapist, it can shed some light.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. It's a little freaky, but
No, I hear you.
yeah. So what I can't believe I forgot to mention, although we didn't finish talking about it, I'll have to back up a little bit
That's
because
okay. That's
in
fine.
addition to the cyborg experience, well into my 20s, let's see. Yeah, well into my, well, from childhood on, and I always felt like there was something up in my sinus behind my eye.
Okay.
You couldn't sneeze it out. You couldn't do anything. And I don't know what year it was. Let's see. My cheat sheet here. Sometime during 2016 or 17, it stopped. I went, wow, because this is a 24/7 deal. I mean, I could never even go anywhere without a tissue, only on my left side. And this was the side that bled all my childhood as well. Well, I noticed when I woke up from that cyborg event, it's back. Not happy about it because it
No.
just
Do you
yeah,
feel any pressure or any itchiness or anything like that? Any
not
sensation like that?
it just feels like there's something in it way up my sinus and almost under my eye.
Okay.
And it came back that afternoon that I woke up. It could be coincidence. There's really no way of knowing why it's there, the way I feel it again. So it could be another implant.
Could be. It would be interesting if in your life you ever got an X-ray of some scan just to see if there was anything that was showing up in that area. You
It
know.
could be. I do have a pretty powerful magnet, and I put it by my eye,
Oh,
and it ached.
really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting too. Ah,
Who
wow.
knows? Well,
Wow.
that was my scientific investigation.
Okay.
Okay. So, orbs. I mentioned one orb during an encounter that included the beam of light and 20 minutes missing time. But I
Yeah.
did talk about, this was up at the same area up at West Hill Lake on the Barkhamsted, New Hartford town line. I had company over out back of this cottage where I was, and I had what was called my Fred Flintstone fireplace. I put huge boulders together, and it was a really giant fire, and people were just standing around drinking beer. I had a makeshift bench, and I sat down, and my neighbor who lived behind me, kitty corner, came and sat next to me. And I had a habit of calling in UFOs. And he didn't know about it. Nobody really knew about it, but it was a beautiful night, and we were all looking at just he and I were looking at the sky. And I thought I would just call one. I put the signal out, and then I looked to my right and said to him, "Good night to see a UFO, isn't it?" And he looked back at me and said, "I guess so." So in about 30 seconds, this white orb, it looked kind of like a pearl. It must have been pretty big, about the size of a car tire, but from the distance it was to us, it looked maybe about as big as a cantaloupe or something. And it was coming straight at us. Now it was probably, I could only do it by maybe telephone poles. Maybe it was 5 or 6 telephone poles away and maybe
Okay.
about 4 or 5 high. But then it kept on coming closer and closer. And he looked at me like, "Girl, you're weird. Did you call this thing?" And it came not too far away, probably a couple of 100 feet away, and maybe a few 100 feet up, or if that. And then it took a gentle right hand dog leg, went for about another 4 seconds, and then imploded on itself. And so we looked at each other, and he said, "You see that?" I said, "Oh, yes, I did." So that was a really fun one to see.
Did you have a feeling of fear with that, or just wonderment, or was there anything that you were experiencing at that moment?
No, it was just like cool. There it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what he was feeling. He was not afraid, but he didn't know what to say.
Right. I can understand that.
Yeah. So speaking of orbs, now I have my new one. I can get rid of my cheat sheets here. I think it was May 1st or 1st or 2nd, because I stay up all night. That was about 2:30, either 2:30 or 3:30 in the morning. I can't remember because I saw both times, which I don't think I had missing time, but I don't know. I can't tell you exactly what time it was. I'm laying down in bed on the second floor, and behind me is woods. I have a fenced in area that includes woods and yard, but beyond that is some of my woods, and it's a mile to the reservoir. So we have bear and everything out here, very secluded. My dog was at the end of the bed, facing the window, and she was looking out the window. She picked her head up and she was riveted looking out the window. Is this me again? With the static. I'm just checking my connection here.
Sure. Sure. Take your time.
It stopped. All right. So I thought, what? And I looked out the window through chiffon curtains, and there was an orb. Now it was probably about not too far, not even 50 feet maybe, into the woods. There was only a few trees obstructing it, not too many. So it was within my fenced in area, and it looked fuzzy, and then it went away. And I got out of bed, pushed back my chiffon curtains, and it showed up again. And it was still fuzzy, although I didn't have my glasses on. It wasn't like real crisp clear. And then it disappeared. And I was like, cool. Because before I go to bed, I say prayers to, Yahweh and Jesus and other things, and thanks and protection. And it's a routine. And the Space Brothers and Sisters, I always include them.
Good for you. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
So after the second one disappeared, I waited and maybe 15 seconds. And I said, oh, come on, do it again. Well, this quasar, it's like a 4-pointed elongated star, very crisp and clear, showed up. And it's hard to say how big it was, but it was at least maybe 4 feet long, and not quite as tall. And then it imploded upon itself. The best way I can describe it is if you look at a black and white old tube TV, when you shut them off, they used to have that quasar and it would implode on
Yep.
it. Very much like that. And that was really neat. And that was just this month, beginning of the month.
Again, quite amazing. One thing you're saying, you've mentioned a couple times, and I'm hearing this a lot, especially lately, of the fact that people have thought or said out loud, boy, I've never seen a UFO. I wish I could possibly see one sometime. Or they're talking to someone and somebody mentions something, and then it's like somebody was overhearing you and all of a sudden said something's taking place. I've heard that story from various people quite a bit, that how can they understand what we're thinking or saying? And now I'm at the opinion that does go on. That does go on. I've had it in my own life a few times where we were looking for a contact, a peaceful, loving contact, and then something did happen. It's almost like, okay, you're asking for that, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And it just floors me, absolutely. And a lot of other people have mentioned that. So you've also mentioned that in your story. So very interesting too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Gravity manipulation. Now, this is pretty interesting. When I was a child, I had an incident where I was wrestling with my neighborhood friend boys. I think one was a year younger than me, and maybe his brother was a year younger than him. But they couldn't get me off my feet. This is at a house where I had some experiences there too, in Orange, Connecticut. And they couldn't get me off my feet 2 against 1, which was kind of bizarre. So when my father came home from work, and he was in his policeman's uniform. I was in the front yard and I challenged him to take me off my feet. And I only weighed maybe 65, 70 pounds. He could not get me off the ground. I tightened my arms, clenched my fists, clenched my legs, and I stuck to the ground. Either I made myself heavier or I magnetized myself. I don't know. So I'm hearing this fuzzy again.
So you were affecting either somehow physically, either with someone else or yourself, a way that kind of put physics as we know it kind of on a side burner, that there was something else going on.
Yeah, he got mad. Now, I had not ever heard of anybody else having this experience
No.
until I was listening to a radio show. Now, get this. This lady, her name is Erin Montgomery, and she has had a lot of experiences since childhood. And she's on the radio show talking, and I said, you got to be kidding me. She described the exact same thing. And I talked to her because I called into that radio show. I told her I clenched my legs and my arms and made this, I don't know, electrical connection or something. And I stuck myself to the ground. She says, that's exactly how I did it. And when she went through hypnosis, and what she found during hypnosis was, let's see, that she had 4-generation contact with her family, and that she had learned how to do that while on a UFO. They taught her how to manipulate gravity. I don't know if I should take my headphones off. I'm still getting this funny sound here.
Whatever's good for you. If you want to try a few different things, please go right ahead. You got to be comfortable.
Well,
that's quite a story. That is quite a story of somehow either suspending physics as we know it, or using other kinds of powers to manipulate. Very interesting. You were talking about orbs. I was in Provincetown, Massachusetts. I love going there during the summer. It's a wonderful town up there on the tip of Cape Cod. And there was a tour of a paranormal phenomenon one evening that I went on with a friend. And we went past a particular house. It was right on Main Street. And the guide stopped and said, this house has so many stories to tell. People have seen things. There have been orbs, quite a lot. It goes way, way back, many, many years. And I took out my camera and took some photographs of it. I was standing across the street from this old house. And when I got the film developed, it was flooded with white orbs.
Wow.
Flooded. Yeah. I was like, okay, got it. The man was saying what was real, all right, because there they were. I couldn't see them when I was there, but it got onto the film. So for what that's worth.
Have you ever seen a blue one surrounded with a yellow ring by any chance?
No, I have not. Huh.
I saw one once from, it was actually a murder scene. This lady was murdered and somebody burnt her house down with her in it. And I saw this blue orb with a yellow ring. So I take it that was a human spirit, because the Warrens described the same thing in a house. This one orb, it was blue with yellow. Was just, I don't know. Okay, gravity manipulation. Oh, I wanted to bring up one more thing, which is kind of strange. I haven't talked to you at all about my guides, because I have 5 of them that I know of. But during that time in the 90s, when I was still a baby at all this, I met a guide. I'll call him a guide, and I instinctively called him Master. Now, I felt weird calling him Master. I didn't know about master guides or anything like that. But he was there specifically to teach me demagnetization practice for travel. And I was practicing, but it would make me dizzy and then nauseous. And finally I would get just too nauseous. So I quit. I'm a dropout. But I was practicing to demagnetize myself. And I don't know. I never got anywhere with that. It's been a long time since I've tried to contact that master back. So perhaps that has something to do with what happened in my childhood.
Do you get in a very quiet place and get very focused and just let the time go on, not conscious of how long it takes, but try to focus your energy that way? Is that how you do it?
Well, I used to be at the same place, same time every morning with my notes. I have notebooks full of notes between talking back and forth with my guides. And this one,
Good to do. Wow, good. I'm so glad you did that.
yeah, so it wasn't necessarily quiet or meditating, and I don't have closed-eyed visions. I have open-eyed visions. So I'm a little different that way.
I was
So
going to ask you too. Just I might have asked you this in part one, but uh, your parents, your grandparents on both sides of the family, or other aunts and uncles, did anyone in your families have any other paranormal experiences? Did they ever express anything like that at all to you?
my mother hinted once when we were watching TV. I think I described this before, where it was a witch mother and a witch daughter, and the mother said, "Where do you think you got it from?" And my mother turned to me and said, "And where do you think you got it from?" Now, my father did have an experience after I had defeated being afraid of this very dark, evil thing that was there. Um, that they he encountered it, because once I defeated it and it couldn't make me afraid of it anymore, it went after him. But
Wow.
that's one of the spooky stories. I think if we do a part 3, I'll get into the ghosty aspect of it.
You can bet we're going to do a part three.
Oh,
Absolutely.
I got some crazy stuff that's happened throughout my life, and being a spirit medium with clients. I've had a couple of really interesting, uh, with happy endings. So, but they're scary. I had things happen here in the house because of it. Because these are very evil things that can come through. You just really never know.
My mom always said to me, Nick, don't go near the Ouija boards. If anybody's playing with them, you don't want to be anywhere near them. And I never thought to ask her at the time, why are you saying that? Did you have an experience or experiences? But she warned me, and she was very stern about it. She said, Nick, just don't ever play like that. Don't go near things like that. And I wish now, I mean, she's passed on. I so wish I had followed that up with asking her much more about why she was saying that to me.
She probably knew something. Well, this has nothing really to do with a Ouija board. When you're a spirit medium, you have to ground yourself. If you're going to use a Ouija board, you have to ground yourself. You call all your guides, you set up protection. It's not a game. Okay, but what happened with this, you'll find out on part 3 with this one story, was that I was in a hurry because the lady running the metaphysical shop messed up the schedule. And all of a sudden I show up early, but I'm not. I'm actually late for an appointment. So I did not ground myself. This lady had an attachment and I got it. And there was 2 haunted paintings involved in this. It took a while to figure out why she came to me and what her problem was, but that was definitely it. So yeah, it was interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what else here? Okay. Oh, this was interesting now. Speaking of implants, uh, my son must have been about 2, so 83. So it could have been about 1985. I was in Rhode Island. I was clamming, Pequannockachog. And I like to clam near rocks because nobody uses those rakes. So you find a lot of clams around rocks. And I had nicked my knuckle, and it was a bleeder, whatever. But eventually, in about several months later, it swelled up. It made a purler in there. I could not bend my finger anymore. So I had to have it operated on. It was just local anesthetic. I went to the local hospital. I couldn't really look at it. I thought I could, but I couldn't. And they removed it. And the guy was looking at it, whatever it was, this pearl in there. I said, "Do you think it's a part of a barnacle or something?" He goes, "I don't know." He said, we're going to have this analyzed, and they take it away. So I called back because he didn't call me for a while. I called back. I said, did you ever have it analyzed? He said, yes. I says, well, what is it? And he said, we don't know. He says, it's not identifiable. I says, what do you mean it's not identifiable? He goes, it's nothing known to man.
Whoa.
Like, it's not on the, I said, you mean it's not on the periodic table? I says, well, where is it? I want it. He goes, oh no, you're probably not going to be able to get it back. We don't know where it is.
That doesn't make sense at all.
No, it doesn't make sense to me either.
No.
How could I make something in my body that is not known to man?
Yeah, no. It sounds to me as though you got an implant of some sort. Was that on your knuckles? You said in your knuckles?
It was on my knuckle where I had an injury. So I thought my body grew something around maybe a piece of a barnacle.
Okay, I mean that's a logical thing to think
But
of.
if my body grew it, it should be recognizable.
Exactly, and it wasn't.
No.
Was it ever ever itchy, or did you ever feel any pressure anywhere in that area?
No.
No. Okay. I know that some people have said, and I'm including myself in this because I think I did get an implant, that sometimes it feels itchy and what's the right word? That something is there. It just feels like, yeah, if I mean, I may go and try to get it removed, but I'm a little bit of a chicken to do that. But I just feel as though something is there. And again, you were feeling the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I've heard stories where they've taken out this little tiny chip, almost only a grain of sand big, and the thing moved. I've seen some videos where something actually moved after they took it out and put it on a pad.
Well, that's creepy.
Yeah, that is. Like it had a little life of its own almost. So anyhow, you wonder how it was powered, if it was powered by your body somehow, a chemical or your blood or a tissue is somehow using that to power what it is. Some people have picked up that there's a transmission thing going on. With this little tiny, and although that sounded crazy maybe 5 or 10 years ago, but now we know what's some of the things that are in the inoculations for COVID, and they've got some tiny particles in there that can react and really do some serious, what shall I say, navigation, information that is relayed. That exists now, so it's not that far off at all.
I saw your email blast about that. Yeah.
That was amazing. Yeah. I got to say about the emails, we have people, thank God. I mean, our little group has reached out, and we've got some amazing heavy duty research people, and they email me almost every day. And we send out quite a few emails, as you know, about research or about findings, and it's just been riveting. It's absolutely riveting what's going on, and the more you know, the more you want to know too. So, and I just want to take a moment to say thank you to all the people in our group that have contributed and do contribute all the time. Very appreciated.
Awesome. Speaking of knuckles and joints here, I heard recently, you've heard of TMJ? It's something where you have problems with your jaw, opening and closing your jaw.
I have not heard of that. Please help us there.
What's called? Did I write down the whole name of this?
I see it as TMJ, and it says aliens question mark, really question mark on the notes.
Temporomandibular joint disorder.
Huh? Never heard of that.
All right. Now, ever since I was young, probably preteen, I had problems with my jaw and pain, and it would actually unhook itself and get stuck. Or I can unhinge it and open it up beyond a normal jaw. Now, my dentist noticed this too. He goes, don't do that. I says, well, I can't help it. And I don't know if anyone else will ever find the answer to this, because I could kick myself for not writing down or making note I had skimmed through emails or something on the computer, but it said TMJ is associated with abductions quite often. Now, whether they overextend your mouth with probing in for whatever they might do, and they actually damage muscles in your jaw, I don't know.
Interesting. Have you had any abductions where you were on a table or anything like that ever go on to your memory?
Yeah, I had that one that I mentioned in part one,
Right.
and I don't remember, any manipulation other than every cell in my body hurt.
Hmm.
Like it was every cell. You could literally feel every cell in your body in pain, and that
Let
was
me ask you a question. When that happened, did you also you lose control of your movement, like you felt as though you couldn't move at all
when no,
when
I
that
could
was
not move.
going on?
I could not move.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me too, and
Hmm.
it's a horrible feeling. You feel like you're paralyzed. You just can't. Your mind is going, but your body is just absolutely can't respond at all.
No,
Like you're being controlled, and you can't do anything about it. It's a horrible feeling.
no, I had my peripheral vision a little bit, and I could see my feet, and ahead of me. So it was, yeah, that was not a good experience at all.
No, no.
Um,
See on the notes. Let me see. We've
yeah.
got aliens, and then we got. Well, why did I hear what no one else could?
Oh, yeah, this is almost comical, but I've actually heard of other people hearing these sounds. Now, if you can imagine a hiss, a hum, a buzz, and a shh all at the same time. Now, let me set the scenario. I'm in a basement apartment, uh, 2 rooms. My son was there. He must have been about 3 or 4, and my first husband. It's just one door that leads out to a parking lot, and across there is the river. And all of a sudden, in the distance, I hear this sound, all those four combined, and it starts getting closer and louder and louder. I would have to compare it to putting your head near a street sweeper. And
Okay.
it was so loud. My son and husband were right there, and they didn't hear a thing. And I'm holding my hands over my ears and screaming, "Can't you hear it? Can't you hear it?" And they looked at each other and looked at me like, "Mom, like you are nuts." And it went away as slowly as it came. It finally went away. And they just looked at me and shook their head. But that was incredible. It was like something came in like a slow sweep and it went. But oh boy, I heard it. It was
Well,
deafening, deafening. But it was only in my head, apparently.
I have tinnitus, and since they installed 26 smart meters 1 foot from my kitchen wall, I have my tinnitus is spiked 10 times up. And what you were just describing about a high pitched sound, I now have that 24 hours a day. I'm going for treatment starting next week to see if they can help me. But what you just described, I've been experiencing in the last 2 months ever since they installed the smart meters that give off radiation, pulsed radiation. And
Wow.
yeah, so I just identify with what you just said.
All right. Yeah, that was the only time I ever had an experience like that.
Hmm.
But my ears are very sensitive. I used to hear things in department stores when I was still in a baby carriage that drove me insane, high pitched sounds, and no one else could hear them. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, very weird. Yeah, plasma UFOs I wanted to talk about. I don't know a whole lot about them, but I've seen one once. And I was outside in my backyard here. It was night, and I decided to go out and look at the sky just to admire the stars and see if anybody was flying by. I didn't see anything, so I shifted my third eye to my third eye, which I can do. You get a different view of things. And
Hmm.
I saw this thing that was it I would have to describe it as a tadpole. It was not as high up as an airplane, It was below the clouds. I don't know how high up it was. Definitely shaped like a tadpole. It glowed on the inside and it wiggled. It's like a tadpole. It stopped, wiggled again, and then disappeared. Oh, what the heck was that? So,
Wow.
but I found out when I went to a meeting, I described it, and he said, yes, that was a plasma UFO. I went, okay. That was the first time I ever saw one. That was only about a year ago, maybe. Yeah.
So others were saying that they identified that experience also.
That they exist. I don't know if they've actually seen them,
Okay,
but
but
that what I
they went
saw
that far.
is real. Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow.
They're alive.
It's always a relief if you are experiencing something and then someone else, either at that moment or later, identifies the same whatever it is, and
Yep.
it kind of confirms that yes, indeed, there was something going on. It's always you feel relief. You feel oh boy, it's not just me. That something is up. So I get it. A lot of the members have said very similar things of what I'm now reflecting to you on some of their experiences too.
At this point in my life, Nick, I don't doubt much.
You know what? Very, very few things could surprise me anymore, right?
Right.
Like it's like right now, the atmosphere here, here in America, in New York City, is like 1984 seems like a trip to Disney World compared to what, if you follow what's going on worldwide and the political situations, it is beyond anything I ever thought in my whole life that I would be dealing with. And we're dealing with this now on a daily basis. So that's a whole other story. But yeah, it's incredible. I want to ask you, have you ever been to Pine Bush, New York, ever in your life? Have you ever traveled there?
No, and my dog just wrapped her. Hold on.
Oh,
Do that, Maya.
we have a canine.
My dog wrapped my wire around her.
She wants to be on, obviously wants to be on camera. A lot of animals insist.
I couldn't do that again if I tried. Okay.
A couple of people during some of our podcasts had their cats actually take over. They were taking over.
Typical kitty. Okay. No, I have never been to Pine Bush, I don't think. Not for any particular reason.
Right. At some point, maybe even with us or some maybe with your friends, but we've had some pretty interesting experiences there. It's known for many sightings, other strange activities. It's quite an interesting place, and I've heard other people at different times talk about what happened to them when they were in that area. So that's another. We'll go into that at some other point off camera, but at some point, I think that might be a place to take a look. Maybe a little trip there.
Wow. Would that have anything to do with stone chambers there?
Yes, yeah, it has that also.
Because I had actually written that down to finish up tonight with, but I did have
Sure.
one more thing to talk about.
Sure, please do. And
Before
then
the stone chambers, because those chambers are pretty wild. Some of them. I had some experiences in them and near them.
I would love to hear about that.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll have time tonight, but if not,
Well,
we'll
let me
do a
see.
rain check.
Why don't we do a little bit of that, and then we'll go to some Q&A before we have to leave.
Sure.
Okay.
Way back in the 90s, I went with Phil and Ambrogno on what they call chamber tours.
Oh.
And yeah, we were in the Brewster, New Paltz, and Mahopac area. And according to him, some of them were female, some of them were male. So you had rounded ones and then rectangular ones. And we were walking down to the first one, and I felt elated. I don't know why. It was just there's a lot of quartz in the ground, and I just loved it. Didn't have an experience in it other than I just felt really great. And I think Phil knew I was psychic. Somehow he just knew. So he asked me, what I thought, and I said, "This is, okay." On the way out, about a stone's throw into the woods, I noticed a big stone wall with on each side of that stone wall, and this was a big stone wall, huge round rock on each end. like it was put there. And I don't know how they got up there. And sitting on that stone wall was a woman crouched. Now she was maybe she was 100 feet away, but on this stone wall, and she had a staff, and she's going, Cecile, Cecile. Now Phil's near me, and I said, Phil, I want to go talk to the woman. He goes, no, don't go. I says, what do you mean don't go? He goes, we'll never get out of here. He goes, you won't want to leave. He goes, come back. I says, but I want to talk to her. He goes, no. Apparently there was another girl on another trip who saw the same woman. No one else could see her at the time except me, but she apparently is a spirit that resides there.
Whoa.
So yeah, then we went on to another one. This one really tripped me out. I went in to this one and I couldn't even concentrate. There's, about 5 or 6 other people in there. I remember one tall guy, he had to actually bend over just to be in there. And I was off as I entered in, I stepped off to the left. And my stomach started twisting into a knot very slowly, as if you're wringing out a wet rag, real slow. And I'm staring at the dirt. I'm not even hearing what Phil's saying. And I see this portal in the ground about the size of a coffee can opening, maybe. And there's this little elliptical universe with planets going counterclockwise around this vortex or whatever you call it. And I didn't want to blink because I was afraid if I blinked, I would lose my third eye. I finally, after a minute or so, I said, Phil, he said, what? I said, there's a vortex in here. He goes, yes, there is. And I walked over and I pointed and I said, and it's right here. He goes, exactly. Apparently,
Whoa.
someone else had seen it too. I had to walk out of there. I had to leave because I couldn't deal with it. I said, everything's going counterclockwise in here. He goes, yeah, this one represents south. So in other words, it's like a flipped equator.
Mm-hmm.
I really regret not going up to that portal and sticking my hand in. I wonder what would have happened.
Well, maybe some other time you can revisit, maybe.
I don't know. It messed me up for 2 days because we finished up at a Buddhist, there's some kind of Buddhist temple place there in New York. And they hadn't even finished it yet, but I just sat at the edge of the sidewalk, completely dumbfounded. And he bothered to walk all the way over to me and said, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. I couldn't even think. It affected
our mutual dear friend, Jeffrey Payne Whittam, who is a woods walker and has incredible experiences, as you well know. And I've interviewed him. I'm going to interview him, I think, in another month again, because there's so many experiences that he's had, including things that you're beginning to identify with those structures in New England. And they are amazing. And little is really known about them. And people have experienced, as you well know, some very, very strange physical and mental experiences when they've been near it or in it. Something is up, and Jeffrey was also was fascinating to hear what he had uncovered in his many travels in the deep woods of New England. And what's there? If you really want to look, things are there. Also, I just wanted to identify that lately I saw a map, and it showed the amount of UFO sightings in Massachusetts, and it was a lot, especially on the north-south and from the middle of Massachusetts to the ocean. A fair amount of in that area of sightings. Just interesting. I just saw that the other night. Yeah. But well, all right. Well, look at now. Do we go through your notes enough to take a few Q&As now?
Oh, sure. We didn't get to Bigfoot, but we can always save that for another day.
Well, okay. So let me see. Now. Doreen, do you have something you'd like to ask? You're going to have to unmute if you have a question.
I'm able to start video, it says. Oh, gosh. Anyway, yes, thank you, Adrienne.
Hi.
I don't know what's wrong with this thing. Anyway, the video won't come on. So I appreciate all your experiences, and it sounds quite interesting. But I was going to ask you, to what avail is all that? Do you think you're being prepared for something? I mean, is it like you have a great intuition, you see things, you hear things, but what's the purpose? I mean, have you ever heard anything that said, like, Adrienne, there's something greater that's going to happen in your life that perhaps, you will reveal or share or whatever?
Well, one thing I did learn from my guide, whom I call Eldris, she told me I am a living guide. I am a living guide, so I teach people. I have a high tolerance for many, many things, and I don't know. I teach people. I'm a living guide. I don't know how else to explain it. You don't want to say, "Oh, I'm special," because everybody's special. But I don't know why I am the way I am. You froze up, Nick. There you are.
Yeah. So, in other words, do you like your spirit guide? Did it give you information on the future?
No, because I haven't actually sat down and written to my guides in a long time, but I have used a crystal ball and gotten information about the future. In 2019, I predicted the pandemic. That's actually on air. Yeah. And the most latest prediction I had with the crystal ball for 2021 was that, and I don't know anything about zodiac signs or anything, but when the constellation Leo and the crescent moon align over the Temple Mount, there will be peace. So if there's any astrologers out there who want to let me know when that'll happen.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doreen, for that. Hey, Jim, how about you? Would you like to ask a question?
No questions.
At this point? Okay. Robert, I'm so glad you could join us. Robert, good to have you here. I bet you've got a couple of good questions for Adrienne. Go ahead.
Well, I was very curious about the Bigfoot part because I haven't never seen Bigfoot, but I had a psychic Bigfoot experience that was rather unusual. I wanted to say that I have been to Pine Bush and I have been to it's actually called Magnetic Mine Road, where those chambers are. And it's very unusual. And it's really not good to expose yourself to strong magnetic fields. They can do some odd things to your mind and to your memories. So one must be cautious. I'm glad I came. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you, Adrienne, for your account. I'm actually wondering if you'd be interested in coming on my show, Nick and Adrienne. I have time on Sunday. I have a 2-hour show on Revolution Radio. It's weekly, and I cover a lot of these things, a lot of politics, but politics right now is intertwined very heavily with UFOs. And this thing that I agree with you, Nick, this is the worst condition of humanity that I have ever seen. It is the worst cover-up and manipulation and mind control since the JFK assassination. You know my work in the JFK field.
Oh, I do indeed.
And he died. Primarily, I believe the last straw was his plan to reveal the UFO presence to the American public. He basically stated explicitly. And on November 12th, he wrote a letter to NASA, CIA, NSA, FBI, everybody, put together the data on UFOs. I want the paper by February 1964 because he was planning to reveal it to the public. So we cannot disengage ourselves from this. I sent you that map you saw about Massachusetts.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think it's incumbent and important for all of us to share as much information as we can. The interesting thing about Massachusetts,
yes,
the most abducted state in the Union in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, more people were abducted in Massachusetts than in any other state in the Union.
My abduction experience that I had when I was probably 11, 12 years old with my parents and my sister was in Massachusetts. I'm from Massachusetts. I was
Oh,
born and raised in Springfield, Mass. And I went,
oh my goodness. Do
and,
you know
and
Thomas Reed?
I went to the Massachusetts College of Art and Design in Boston, and then came directly to New York City. So I have a lot of relatives scattered around Massachusetts, and I do visit there. I haven't been there, of course, in 1 year because of what was going on with the pandemic, but I'm looking forward to going back in the summer. So
I'm
yeah,
very
that really
surprised.
struck, Robert, that really struck home with me.
Well, do you know Thomas Reed and the Reed family abduction? It's
I
the
do
most
not.
it's
do
the
not.
most famous abduction in American history because it was heard at the United Nations in 1979 when there was an initiative at UNGA 433, I think it's called. There was an initiative to investigate UFOs in the United Nations General Assembly. Thomas Reed and his family were abducted in Springfield, Massachusetts. It's called the Willow Lake abduction. It's been recognized by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as an official historical event because not only do you have Thomas, his brother Matthew, his grandmother, and his mother abducted from a car that was passing through one of those covered bridges, and he has produced a documentary on it. You see, they came back for his brother Matthew 40 years later. In Indiana, he went to Indiana, became a police officer, and they actually found him and went back to him. There's a big controversy because when the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, they call it the Historical Society, acknowledged this as a historic event for this reason. You had the 4 participants, abductees, and it happened on their farm, a place called Willow Lake. About 5 miles away was a golf course and a country club, and it was full of people in the country club, and they were watching the UFO hovering over the house as the abductions were going. So there's so many witnesses that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts issued a proclamation acknowledging it as a historical event. And then this town of Springfield has gotten into a fight with Thomas Reed because they had a monument placed in the town of Springfield commemorating the event. And a lot of the local yokels took umbrage and thought it was going to reflect badly on the state of Massachusetts, and they got into legal quarrels about having to move it from here to there. But he's somebody you should look up.
Thank you. Thank you for telling me that. I absolutely will follow up on that. Really, I don't know how that got past me, but it did. Thank you.
Amazing. He did an excellent documentary. He hired the best graphic artist to depict the creature that he encountered, and it was not an ordinary creature. It kind of looked like it had a body of an animal on 4 fours with a big long neck. It is amazing. So I have had my own experiences. I'll just share with you this strange experience because I saw the Bigfoot reference. I have not seen Bigfoot, but I've studied it for 60 years. One night, I had a dream. I have 2 orange cats, ginger cats I have twins, right? Brothers. So in this dream, I walked out into my hallway and I looked down the hall and 2 big feet, plural, 2 big feet, about 8 feet tall, were at the end of the hall, and they were looking at my cats, and they were the same color as my cats. And we looked at each other down the hallway, and they said to me, "We're coming back for them because they belong to us."
Whoa!
And I said, "Oh, you think so? Look at them. Ask them who owns them." And this was this confrontation. I thought, man, I'm having a really crazy dream, seeing bright orange colored Bigfoot. 3 days later, I got a video from British Columbia, and it was a tour boat that was going along the coast. People were shooting, video. They captured an orange colored Bigfoot picking pine cones or something from the top. And I said, man, I'm really psychic. And
Oh,
these
whoa.
connections, the psychic connection is the most important one. You have to believe in it because a lot of people will ridicule you, but really that is the connection. And that's when they will visit you or communicate with you in dream states, in lucid dreaming, and remote viewing. You said you see your visions, Adrienne, with your eyes open. You don't close your eyes. Well, that's a very special form of communication. And very gratified to have to hear you, and I hope that the two of you will find time to come on my show and discuss all these things. Very important stuff.
Yep. Okay.
By the way, if you don't know who I am, I'm the editor of UFO Digest and the UFO Spotlight, and
Excellent.
I've been studying UFOs since 1956.
Robert Morningstar is an icon of the urology movement. Unbelievable. Robert, it's an honor for you to be with us. I thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want you at some point when your schedule will permit. I would so love to have you on as a featured guest. I would love that so much.
I'd be happy to do so.
Well, thank you, sir. So, Adrienne, Sonia, would you like to ask a question? You can't. I think you got blocked there. You're muted. There you go.
Yeah, I know. I don't have any questions. But don't know. Yeah, I do have a question. In the beginning, she was talking about cyborgs. Is that like that I have mechanical, have people that travel timeline, that they could loop, they could cross time, that they're engineers somehow?
Yes, I would say they're part human, part mechanical. I don't know anything
Yeah.
about them crossing over timelines, but they are beyond human capabilities with their capabilities.
Yeah. They go travel to some time loop that they could, and you mentioned my lab. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
I looked it up on the computer, and I believe it was a government operation where they would
Yeah.
take
Okay.
people and put them through some rigorous things, psychologically damaging. I don't know much about it though.
Yeah, I think they have stuff to do with the cyborg. I guess that's why I mentioned it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. I can't see the people that are just there's names or numbers, but would anybody like to unmute and ask a question at this moment? Go ahead. Anyone? Michael? Would anybody like to do that before we continue? We have about 15 more minutes before we have to go. All right. Then continuing on, I would like to talk a little bit. Oh wait,
Nick,
so
I do have a comment. I do know quite a bit about my labs. And they're called military intelligence laboratories, my labs. Countless people have been abducted and are taken to, you might call hangars or warehouses, where they will watch encounters between the aliens and military uniformed officers of our military. One lady that I've known for about 15 years lives in Ohio. She was abducted since childhood, and by several different kinds of aliens. One is the Greys, which are not so nice. And then one day she said to me, I haven't seen them in a long time and I kind of miss them. I said, what? You miss the Greys? And she goes, no, the Pinks. I said, what? The Pinks. They're kind of pink or they're kind of orange. And they're like smiley, happy faces. Whenever you're in their presence, you just feel ecstasy. You feel love. You feel happiness. It's not the Greys. And I thought, wow, that's a weird one, pink aliens, orange aliens. The next day, I got 3 emails, all referring to orange aliens. And one of them was from a captain, Robert Collins, who was with the Foreign Technology Division at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He wrote a book called Exempt from Disclosure. But the story I want to tell you, which was the most disturbing one, is that she was abducted by gray aliens and taken to a warehouse where she saw a table, like a forum, and military uniformed officers all watching this demonstration. And the demonstration that was being presented by the alien to the military, demonstrating to them mind control techniques that he was exercising on Catherine. That's her name, Catherine.
Whoa.
And it's really wild. He was willing to trade that technology to the military in return for something else which was unspoken. But here's the weird part. She talked to the alien and she said to him, "What should I call you?" And the alien replied, "You can call me Mufti, Mufti, which is an Arabic word. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Grand Mufti. A Mufti is it's a religious leader. For example, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem who fled to Egypt. And I have found remarkable correlations, and I don't know if you know it, but Iran is one of the few nations on earth has completely disclosed. The president of Iran, Rouhani, came out 3 years ago and described his UFO experience as a boy in Tehran, chasing a UFO that landed, took off, went to a mosque, he followed it, he skipped school, and it was a rectangular, kind of quadrangular UFO. It wasn't a round UFO. He described it as one similar to the saddles they put on elephants' backs in India. So it's a huge.
Do you think that India has stargates, places, Iran? Do you think there's stargates there?
Definitely. I actually believe that the Islamic religion was started by ETs, because I have studied Islam for more than 40 years, and I found that Muhammad's account of his conversion describes him he went on a retreat and he was in a cave, and he says that he was being tormented by jinns and demons in the cave. He was being tormented, and suddenly the angel Gabriel came in and grabbed him by the throat, lifted him up, and made him confess. And there's another story about Muhammad that says that he was transported to heaven, and he was there at the heavenly gate, and he felt unworthy to go in. The doors were being opened. He felt unworthy to enter the portal. But Jesus Christ was there, and he said, "Listen, it's okay. Everything's going to be all right. I've arranged for it." But before he went through the portal, this is the most amazing story. Muhammad claims that some angels came, they cut open his chest, they took out his heart and washed his heart of all this black stuff. After all the black stuff was washed out of his heart, they put it back into his chest, sewed him up. And then Jesus opened the gate so he could go in and see God.
Whoa!
Manly P. Hall. P. Hall.
Man, this, I can't think of anything more fascinating than what we're talking about right now. Seriously, really, I'm on board on such a level here. Oh my goodness! Between Adrienne and you and others, no fooling. I'm not going to go to sleep tonight. Now,
okay,
there's just too much to think about.
Let's make a time on our show. My co-host Andrew Curry is listening in from British Columbia, and we're both very interested in this because the UFOs are hovering close by, and they're actually making apparitions both in his world and in my world here. So keep your eyes to the sky because they're all over New York. So when you come on the show, I'll tell you about my experience on June 1st. The closest encounter I've ever had in New York City. I've had 7, and a UFO came down to practically street level at 89th and Riverside Drive. If you go to ufodigest.com, it's the top story. It says video update. So
also, Robert, would you give me on an email, please, your schedule of your podcast so I can put it out to everybody?
Okay, sure. Be happy to do so.
Okay, I would love that, and I'm sure they would also. All right. Well, we have a few more minutes to go, and Adrienne, I just want to ask you this question, and this will end our second part, and we will be going on a schedule to part 3, of course. But I want to ask you, in the final moments here, what what are your thoughts? What would you like to say to the people, not only here on the Zoom, but the people who will be listening and looking on YouTube? What are your thoughts on a general, the big picture level? If you want to share something like that.
I'll do my best. That's a really huge question.
I didn't say it was going to be. I didn't say it was going to be easy.
All right. I want everybody to have an open mind. Each soul on this earth is here for a reason. And if you're listening to this right now or in the near future, you are in a very special time on earth and you were meant to be here. Your existence is very important. What you know is very important. So as you travel through into the future, don't forget about what is important. You and love and kindness for your fellow man. Keep an open mind because there are things you may think you know. That's true, but they are not. It could be paranormal or it could be real life, like what you're experiencing right now. And I think what's going on right now in our lives is pretty paranormal.
Beautifully, wonderfully said. Thank you so much, Adrienne. You are a dear friend, and I just love talking to you. And I'm sure everybody here tonight also felt the same way. All right, I'm going to go then to the our final sign off. I'm going to say that if anybody would have any questions or comments for either me or Adrienne, you may do that by emailing me. And that, again, my email address is NICK NYNY, the numeral 1 at gmail.com. Nick, NYNY1, the numeral 1 at gmail.com. And we'd be very happy to take your questions or your comments. Absolutely. Adrienne, a very heartfelt thanks to you. What a wonderful program you did for us. And we certainly appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. And I will look forward to being here again sometime soon.
Absolutely. I'll give you a schedule and we'll see what we can do. Okay. So this is Nick Curto for Disclosure Network New York, wishing you all an enlightened journey as you connect the dots to seek truth. Till next time, keep informed, stay safe, and be very kind to one another. Goodbye for now. Much love to you all. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.